"You're being charged with felony trespassing and vandalism." The officer's voice was flat, almost tired. The old man said nothing. He stood beside the patrol car, hands cuffed, back straight, eyes unreadable. He didn't speak when they took his fingerprints. Didn't flinch when they took his boots. Just watched the walls like they held answers, only he could see. In court, he wore a faded work jacket, oil-stained, frayed at the sleeves. A few spectators whispered, recognizing him from the outskirts of town, the quiet mechanic with the limp and the old dog. They said he kept to himself. They said his shop hadn't been open for years. They said he was probably senile. But what no one said, what no one even guessed, was that 20 years ago, that same man had grounded an entire enemy fleet using nothing but scrap metal and grit. And the only person alive who could prove it was already on a flight headed straight to this small courtroom. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and if you believe stories like this should be told, subscribe to the channel. The world needs to remember. The town was the kind of place people passed through without stopping. One main road, one diner, one gas station, and one courthouse that hadn't seen real news since a local mayor got caught using town funds to pave his driveway. So when a 74-year-old man was arrested for breaking into a military scrapyard at midnight and dismantling a classified surveillance drone piece by piece in under 9 minutes, it was strange, but not headline-worthy, until the military got involved. They didn't press charges. They didn't say anything, actually, just showed up the next morning, collected the wreckage, and left without comment. The charges came from the town, the property damage, the unauthorized access. The part that didn't make sense was why. Why would a reclusive mechanic with no prior record break into a government facility and take apart one of the most advanced machines in the U.S. arsenal? He wouldn't say. The public defender looked like she was 12 years old and had just learned how to use email. She called him Mr. Ellis. He called her Miss. That was the extent of their relationship. No family listed, no next of kin, no explanation. He refused a plea deal, showed up to every hearing without a lawyer until the judge forced one on him. The courtroom buzzed with curiosity. Nobody could pin down whether he was crazy or just old. But the real storm was brewing somewhere else. Because halfway across the country, in a secured facility in Nevada, a retired Air Force colonel saw the incident report and dropped his coffee. 2 hours later, he was in uniform again. 3 hours after that, he was on a plane. The name on the docket had made him sit down. James Ellis. And while the courtroom filled with people who thought this was just a strange footnote in an otherwise boring week, Colonel Marcus Langston knew otherwise. The court clerk mispronounced his name. James Ellis? He stood, nodded once, and walked to the table without being prompted. No cuffs, just quiet eyes and calloused hands. The bailiff didn't like him, couldn't say why. The man had said nothing, done nothing, but his silence felt like it weighed something, like if he opened his mouth, it would shift the air in the room. The prosecution painted a picture of a lonely old man with a chip on his shoulder. They used the word delusional twice, the phrase military complex 3 times. A psychologist testified that he exhibited classic patterns of dissociative behavior. Ellis didn't blink. They brought out diagrams, photos, the damaged drone, $2.3 million in losses, advanced systems dismantled with precision they claimed was almost surgical. The prosecutor smirked as he described it. It's as if he knew exactly where to cut. The judge raised an eyebrow. The public defender didn't even glance up. Then came the final witness. He disabled our drone like he'd built it. Is that possible? Number because nobody outside of Lockheed Martin has even seen that blueprint, and he used a wrench and a flashlight. The courtroom chuckled. Even the judge smiled slightly. Ridiculous. Except it wasn't. The door opened quietly. A man stepped inside, tall, composed, wearing Air Force blues with a row of ribbons that spanned his chest and 4 stars on each shoulder. He walked with purpose, not fast, not slow, like the building itself wasn't unfamiliar. Every eye turned. The judge paused. "May I ask who you are, sir?" The man didn't hesitate. "General Marcus Langston, retired. I'm here to speak on behalf of James Ellis." The courtroom went silent. "I understand this is unusual, but I was cleared this morning by the Pentagon. I have something to say, and it's classified until right now." The judge glanced at the prosecutor, who was suddenly very, very quiet. "Go ahead." Langston stepped toward the jury box, removed a folder from his inner jacket pocket, and laid it flat on the railing. "In 2003, I was assigned to a covert engineering unit responsible for counter-electronic warfare operations overseas. Most of what we did is still buried under red tape, but this man, James Ellis, was our ghost, our failsafe. When satellites failed and computers froze, Ellis didn't. He fixed systems no one could understand. He invented fixes that saved lives. There's a mission file buried under Operation Grey Ember. You won't find his name, but without him, my team and I would have died on a desert ridge outside Kirkuk. He turned to the judge. His last official act was creating a signal disruptor that ended a drone war before it started. Then he vanished. Retired without pension, refused recognition, said he was just tired of being useful. We tried to find him. Letters returned, calls unanswered. I thought he'd died. Langston looked directly at Ellis. When I saw what he dismantled, I knew. That drone wasn't just a drone. It was carrying software we once swore would never be deployed on U.S. soil. Ellis recognized it, knew what it meant, and stopped it. Alone, quietly, without asking permission. He turned back to the judge. He didn't break the law. He kept a promise, one this country made, and quietly broke. The prosecutor tried to speak, but the words faltered. Langston added, "This isn't about vandalism, it's about accountability." The judge was quiet for a long moment. Then she said softly, "Charges dismissed." Immediately. The gavel fell like the closing note of a long-forgotten anthem. Ellis stood, but didn't move, didn't react. Langston walked to him, offered a handshake. Ellis hesitated, then took it. Outside, a few veterans stood silently, saluting. Reporters didn't shout questions. They just watched. Ellis didn't look like a hero. He looked like a man who'd been misunderstood for too long. But for once, someone remembered